And if you're utilizing big army doctrine as part of your philosophy, a CQB for example, you're wrong, because the goal is survival and the military can take acceptable losses. You and your mutual assistance group cannot afford losses or injuries. Now, generally speaking, I'll say this about body armor. If you're in a situation where you're using or needing body armor post-collapse, that's probably not a place you want to be outside of something I was mentioning the other day in a video. If you're participating in conflict, you obviously want body armor in that if you're fighting to defend your homeland. But beyond that, if you're in a place that requires the constant use of body armor, you probably don't want to stay there for very long, because it's probably not sustainable, because you don't have the first world medical support that you need at this point. And if you're utilizing big army doctrine as part of your philosophy, a CQB for example, you're wrong, because the goal is survival and the military can take acceptable losses. You and your mutual assistance group cannot afford losses or injuries. So you need to do everything you can to prevent that from happening, which does include having body armor as part of your preparedness plan. A lot of people do tend to buy a lot of kit, obsess over the kit, and then just buy more kit, but they don't train with it, which is a question I have for you guys. How often are you actually getting out there and using your stuff? Because you might find out that a lot of it sucks. So you should get out there now, see if you need to replace any of it. This video is a response to Bear Independent. The other day he posted a video about body armor and preparedness, and that a lot of people seem to stop once they get into the tactical end of things and they don't move beyond that. Now, it's not a bad place to start. The problem is that can't be the only thing you do to prepare. You need to be working on your hard skills. You need to be stockpiling food. You need to become an asset to whomever it is you may end up teaming up with, because we've all met people in the space who they've got their nods, they've got their plate carrier, they've got body armor, but they can't really do anything. And a lot of people's loadouts begin to get to an absurd level in terms of the amount of weight that they're carrying, especially for their current fitness level, their age. And even as a younger guy, I can tell you this right now, that I will dump my body armor very quickly during a bug out event. Now, for me, my philosophy is I want that armor while I'm operating a vehicle, because I'm a target. And if I was pulling security, even at a compound, even in the middle of nowhere, I would still want body armor in that particular scenario as well. But when it comes down to it, I don't want to be in an environment where I'm going to need that body armor. For example, need it as in that I know I'm going to be participating in a two-way gun range, and not need it in the sense that I just want that extra layer or level of security and feel more comfortable pulling security, or if I have to deal with or potentially deny access to an area. I want armor, right? But if you're in an environment and your first thought is, I'm gonna get this armor because I'm gonna participate in CQB, unless you were participating in an open war, like in Ukraine or something, that should never cross your mind, because CQB is a game for big army to play. It's not a game for you or I to play, ever, if we can avoid it. Because the risk versus reward benefit is not there. There is no acceptable casualty level in the preparedness space. We want to avoid conflict. We want to avoid being detected, potentially. Check out my video on camouflage I just did yesterday. You need to be making preps ahead of time in order to avoid the hardship that undoubtedly many will face tomorrow, unfortunately. I was listening to Tim Pool earlier, and he made mention of the fact that at this point, much of the world, we're now just a frog in a pot of water, and the temperature is gradually getting turned up. And it was a piece about people who are now using credit, buy now, pay later systems for food. Now that bodes pretty badly on a long enough timetable. And if you're in a position where you can afford body armor, by all means, get body armor. But if you don't have your bases covered, if you don't have a basic defensive tool, if you don't have enough food and water on hand for several weeks or several months, you're way behind the 8 ball. Because more and more the general population is cluing on. There's now articles talking about the general population having open discussion about putting more and more food preps back, that they're going to put shelf-stable goods back, which means we're going to be competing with them for canned goods. Now, I encourage all of you to have that physical insurance, but with these strains on the supply chain and what we will likely see happen over the next year with the supply chain, the cost is going to continue to balloon. We're continuing to adopt a lot of the same Euro-style energy policies that are driving food costs up in Europe and energy costs up here in the United States. So you need to consider how you're going to afford all of this, right? You should check out a couple of other videos I posted because I presented some possible solutions for some of these issues. If you're going to be static, if you're going to be in a vehicle, it has a place. If you are in a city for what appears to be a short-term isolated event, body armor makes perfect sense. But if you're bugging out, if we're talking about recce type stuff, then no, it has no place because it's too heavy.